Hi guys, I'm Shelby and welcome to the Personal Finance Diaries. Here we talk real money, saving, debt, and smarter financial decisions. Today's topic is best deep cleaning services you can book online. So that the next time you have to make this decision, you don't have to do weeks of research on your own time. Because the thing with professional cleaning is most people assume it's very expensive, and it honestly can be depending on the route you go to find your cleaner. For example, I recently got a quote from my local Mary Maids for my home, and they wanted $300 per visit for bi-weekly cleaning. That right there is $600 a month before taxes and tip. And I had to go back and forth with my local office through a very long conversation before we even arrived at that estimate. Typically, this is going to be how it works anytime you go to any of the kind of more well-known nationwide brands. Think like Mary Maids, Molly Maid. They all operate in this way, as a franchise where you have to reach out to them and then dialogue in order to get a quote. But there is a whole other category of cleaning that allows you to see prices before you book anything or commit to anything. Even better, when you break down the cost per clean on a lot of these options, they're pretty attractive compared to the more traditional rates I've gotten from companies like Mary Maids. So that is exactly what I am walking you through today. 5 platforms that do things a little bit differently than the standard franchise model. We're also going to walk through real pricing and a clear answer on which one is the best value when it comes down to the cost per clean overall. By the end, you will know exactly which one is going to give you the most value for your dollar. With that said, let's get into it. But before we get into these platforms, I want to walk through a couple must-know details with you, because at the end of the day, the quotes that you are about to see still aren't the full picture in most cases. So the first thing I want you to keep in mind as we go through these options is to think about the cost per each cleaning visit. Because some of these do have membership fees that seem really expensive and potentially even unnecessary when you're unfamiliar with the model. And so a membership fee that looks expensive can actually lower your per clean cost significantly once you've spread it across multiple bookings. Second thing to keep in mind is that even with deep cleanings, your intro pricing and then the pricing for recurring visits are very rarely the same. So for any platform that offers one-off pricing or intro pricing versus ongoing pricing, we will be sure to dig into all of those options too. Third, and perhaps most surprisingly, is the fact that deep cleaning is not a standardized term. And that means that on most of these platforms, it's going to be completely up to you to define what deep cleaning means to you and what exactly you want cleaned. And that means the upfront ballpark quote that you see a lot of the time very well may not include the specific services that you're looking to have done. But don't stress, because I will be sure to flag this for each service as we go. With that said, let's start looking at these platforms. First up is Handy, and when it comes to booking deep cleaning services online, Handy has recently become one of the more recognizable names. And they do offer a deep clean option. You can book it as a one-time service or as a recurring thing. And you can even get a price quoted for your home, as you can see here. And so you put in these details and you'll get a price right away, which is really convenient, right? But the catch is that this quote is not going to really tell you anything about what's included in your service. Yeah, you can click here and you can click on that page to see, but it even says this is guidelines for basic cleaning. It's got nothing for deep cleaning. So even though you've got a quote, there's no way to really know what is included in that base price from this point. With that in mind, the number you see here is likely not going to be the actual final price that you pay. It's especially true if you want things that tend to be extras, like the inside of your fridge cleaned out. That could easily run another $30 to $50 on top of whatever you're quoted here. But you can also book deep cleaning as a recurring service, like I mentioned, so let's take a look at that too. And so this works very similarly. You're going to put in your zip code, approximately the size of your house, the date you're looking for, and then you can get a price. So if you're looking for recurring deep cleaning, Handy's pricing changes entirely. It instead becomes structured around commitment length. So for example, you can get your house cleaned monthly and commit to 12 months, weekly and commit to 3 months, or whatever combination works for you. But one thing I want to point out that is easy to miss, that I almost missed when I was trying this service out, is that this price right here is not what you pay per month. That's the price per cleaning. So if you want weekly cleaning for 12 months, you are paying that cleaner $278.30 every single week. Now, to be fair, at this price, we are fairly comparable to more traditional services that you can't book online. So like Merry Maids, for example, which you usually have to do a phone call to get in touch with them and get scheduled, they quoted me $300 for every 2 weeks. And so if I wanted bi-weekly, that's almost exactly the same price. So at the very least, you know that you're going to be paying in the ballpark of what you would be for a quote-unquote more traditional brand. But there are a few combinations where these terms kind of stop making sense. For example, if you want monthly cleaning and you only want to commit to a few months at a time, you are spending $635 for every cleaning. If you take that up to 12 months, you get closer to a standard price, but it's pretty amazing just how big the spectrum is here. So really pay attention to what price you're looking at per cleaning if you decide to go with Handy. They also sometimes run specials where they'll apply a coupon, and that can help a bit, but you will always also be charged this $5 trust and support fee, which they say is just to keep the platform going. And there is a third option for deep cleaning here with Handy that you can still book online, and that is through their Handy Select membership. The way this Handy Select membership works is that you can pay either $10 a month or $99 every 12 months for access to cleaning discounts. So when you become a member with this, you now save 20% on all of your home cleanings. It's kind of like the in-between of the options we've already looked at, right? So you can do either the one-time cleaning, that's it, you pay one time, that was the first one we looked at. You can do this recurring one that lasts for 3 to 12 months and you lock in how often you're going to have cleaning, or you can choose to pay for a month-to-month or an annual kind of like discount opportunity. There is no threshold that you have to book at. If you pay for it for a year and you book deep cleaning once, that's fine. You're allowed to do that. You'll still get the same 20% discount. So they give you a lot of different options on how you sign up here. And no matter which option you choose, you are still able to book your deep cleaning online. So I really appreciate that. But lastly, let's touch on cancellations. If you cancel within 24 hours to 2 hours of your booking, you're going to have to pay a $25 fee. If you cancel within 2 hours or just no-show entirely, you're going to be charged the full booking cost. And then if you wanted to end this plan that you signed up for early, like just completely get off of it entirely, you're going to pay a $99 cancellation fee. My overall verdict on booking Handy for deep cleaning is that it does give you transparent pricing and easy online booking, but the per cost charge for a large home can be so much higher than some of the other platforms that we're still going to look at in this video. Also, what the scope of this deep cleaning is not even clear up front, so that's a bit of a mystery even with the price spelled out for you. My second pick is TaskRabbit. And TaskRabbit here works a little bit differently from Handy. Instead of setting prices based on the size of your home, you are actually going to browse individual people who each set their own hourly rate. You then estimate how many hours your cleaning will take, you pick your person, who is known as a tasker, and you book. Let's take a look at that. So, put in street address. If you have a unit or apartment number, you put that in there as well, and then hit continue. And as you can see, this looks quite a bit different from how it does with other platforms. It doesn't even ask exactly the details of what I want cleaned, if I have pets, anything like that. I know for my home, it's definitely a large task, and I would say no vehicle required. I'm not trying to take anything to the dump or anything like that. As long as they can show up with cleaning supplies, I'm good to go. You hit continue. And then you can be as detailed as you want here. There's a few different ways to do it. One approach is that you can just say deep clean for my entire 2-story home. And then you can discuss the details with the person you book with, or you can take the time to line out every single room, all of the things you need so that they get that information up front. We're going to keep it basic for the purposes of this illustration. And then we'll see taskers and prices. And the people that are going to pop up for you are going to depend entirely on where you're located. In my area, cleaning rates range from about $26 to $65 an hour for standard cleaning. And then if I want something specialized, such as someone who can power wash, which is definitely not the kind of deep cleaning I'm looking for, then you'll pay a higher, more specialized price. There are also people like this who specialize in deep cleaning and things like that who charge a little bit more. But this price that you see here is not actually the entire price you pay, so let me show you what I mean. We'll pick one of these folks to proceed with, and you can pick your date. If they have a minimum, they'll tell you. I know that my house is going to take hours, so that minimum is fine with me. And you'll also notice that you can chat to adjust details and really lock that in before you confirm anything. Now, this is what I wanted to show you. There is the hourly rate that we saw just a moment ago, but there's also this trust and support fee, which based on all the taskers I've looked at and worked with, ranges from about 30 to 40% of the hourly rate on top of what you're paying. So my total rate is actually $63.55 per hour plus sales tax, which is going to be added after the fact. And this means that for a 5-hour deep clean, we're looking at about $300 and change before taxes or tip. But one thing I want to be clear on is that there isn't a separate, specific category where you can look at people who all specialize in deep cleaning. The list that I had a moment ago are all just the cleaners in my area that are available on the date that I selected. What that means is that no matter how detailed you make this, it's up to the tasker that you're hiring to decide whether to ask more questions, get more info, or just to say, yep, that's good, I'll see you when I see you. And what that means is that you need to know going in everything a full deep clean of your home truly requires, how long it takes, or the hours. Otherwise, there's a very real possibility that you're going to be thinking, oh, I only need someone for 2 or 3 hours. And then as they're there for longer and longer, the clock keeps running and your bill goes from a couple $100 to $100 or $200 more than that because the two of you never really sat down and locked in a final price. So because that cost can creep up, I wanted to spell that out. There are some ways to save money, though. You'll see that you've got options to save 15%, 10%, or 5%, depending on what kind of recurring booking you go with. And this can really help offset these fees if you know that you do want recurring deep cleaning. And lastly, in terms of cancellation, if you cancel within 24 hours of your scheduled task, you will be charged the equivalent of 1 hour at the tasker's rate plus the platform fees. So if you were to go in and do that, you would be charged the $46.45 plus 1 hour's worth of this fee. My overall verdict on TaskRabbit, having gone through it and used it, is that it can be great for finding a specialist, and I don't know if you noticed this, but it's nice that you can see reviews of people before you decide who you're going to go with. So they get to write their own little profile and show photos, which is great, but you can see what other people have said about this exact person. And I think that makes a big difference for choosing someone that you're going to be bringing into your home, right? That said, the hourly rate plus the trust fee can add up so fast for a large home deep clean, and the scope is entirely on you to define. What all of that means is that you can potentially find a great value on TaskRabbit, but really take the time to do your research and talk it out with the tasker that you pick to make sure you're not surprised with a very large bill at the end of your deep cleaning. And third, one of my picks is going to be Thumbtack. One thing I like about Thumbtack is that they do have a dedicated deep cleaning section that routes you to book with people who specialize in deep cleaning, unlike TaskRabbit. So let's take a look at what their flow looks like by comparison. So, put in your zip code. You'll notice it put us on a deep cleaning page, which I appreciate, as opposed to a general catch-all page. And then we just answer a few more questions. So I probably want deep cleaning every 2 weeks because, again, my pets shed so much nonstop. I have a 4-bedroom house, and so let's see what we get from this. So once you answer those questions, you will see the starting price for local pros in your area. Although not every single one will display them, as you can see here. These folks don't offer any kind of ballpark and instead just invite you to contact them for pricing. And unlike Handy and TaskRabbit, Thumbtack is not going to charge you a fee for using the platform. Instead, they charge that fee to these companies. And so the price you see here is a little bit closer to the price you'll actually pay than it is, here or with the other options we've looked at thus far. Some of these pros are going to offer discounts for recurring bookings. Some of them aren't. So be sure to ask about that and work with them a little bit. You might be surprised just how much you can save by going from every month to every 2 weeks, for example. And as for what's included in each deep cleaning, it's just like TaskRabbit, right? Because you're being paired with individual companies and professionals, there is no set, step-by-step list of how they're going to do the deep cleaning. They offer it, but how these folks do it is going to be completely different from how this company does it, right? And so it's on you as the customer to communicate with whoever you pick and be very clear about what's important to you, what you want done, what you don't want done, and what your budget is. And much like TaskRabbit, you can take a closer look at any of the options that come up in your feed. The company that you pick, so in this case, Soccer is Cleaning, they're given the ability to build out this entire profile, list out their services, their pictures, everything. And you can also see reviews from people who have actually used this service before. It's always nice to be able to kind of get a peek behind the scenes of who you're inviting into your home before they show up for the very first time, right? Now, in terms of cancellations, we've got a cancellation policy here too. If you cancel less than 24 hours before your next appointment, then you'll pay a $15 cancellation fee. Overall, my verdict on the value here with Thumbtack is that it can be very, very good for comparison shopping between local pros and seeing real starting prices before you have to do any kind of in-home visit or anything like that. And the in-home visits are very common with the more quote-unquote traditional deep cleaning options like Molly Maid and Mary Maids. So I appreciate that that's not part of the process here. That said, what's included in each starting price and what that price is going to go up to once you add everything you want done is really unpredictable. It's going to vary so much from company to company. And so that makes it a little bit tricky to do like an apples to apples comparison here. If you were to look at, $180 versus $450, there's probably going to be a massive difference in what these two companies offer and how they approach it. And so you're going to need to most likely do a fair amount of research beyond just looking at these profiles in order to get a good feel of which one is right for you. Next up on my list is Tidy, and the claim to fame here is that you can book a pro in 2 minutes. So this one is much different from the other platforms we've looked at so far because all of those allow you to look at reviews, see individual cleaners and profiles, whereas with this company, it's all about get booked, get on with your day. And in practice, it really is about as simple as that. So put in your address, continue, decide how much cleaning you want, and you're picking by the hour, and then they give you an estimate of what you can get done with that cleaning. You pick how often you want it. If you want it to be a one-time deep cleaning, then you are going to pay 25% more, so be aware of that. Otherwise, these three are all priced the same. Hit continue. You can choose to pay immediately, and that's fully refundable until 24 hours before your cleaning, or pay after the job, in which case you pay a little bit more. No matter which one you go for, you are going to have to put in a card number here, so be aware of that. But once you get that done, that's it. You don't shop around for cleaners, you don't compare, you don't look at what's included from deep cleaning with one provider versus another. You just put in your info, put in your card number, you're done. So like I mentioned a moment ago, they use time blocks instead of room counts. So for a large home, a 4-hour deep clean is going to be $207. If I wanted 2 pros for a very deep clean, that's going to be $369. And then, like I said, no matter what you pick here, if you want it just as a one-time service, the price is going to go up 25%. And as for how Tidy works, like most platforms that I've gone through on this list so far, Tidy is a connection platform. They are matching you with independent cleaners, not sending their own employees. So once again, the scope of the deep clean is going to depend on what each of these cleaners, for example, chooses to provide, what you ask for, and what your budget is. Unlike companies like Merry Maids, they are not sending out their own trained employees. So you're going to work out the scope of that deep clean with whichever cleaner shows up at your property. And then even though you elect to go every 2 weeks, 4 weeks, weekly, etc., which is membership-ish, there's no formal membership that you sign up for. That's really clear when you take a look at their cancellation policy. The way that this works is that the individual cleaner you work with sets their own cancellation policy. Tidy says here that the most common one that most cleaners have is a 50% charge for cancellations if it's less than 24 hours before the start of your clean. But that is going to vary completely depending on who you ultimately work with, so I'd recommend asking about that up front if you decide to get started with Tidy. So my verdict on the value when it comes to using Tidy is that it does have pretty much the fastest booking experience and extremely consistent pricing, right? Because this all stays the same, you're not committing to a specific term, the only change is if you want a one-time deep cleaning versus a recurring deep cleaning. But that said, the price that you pay here, the per visit cost, is not the most affordable one on this list. The most affordable budget-friendly option is going to be HomeAglow, which we're going to take a look at now. Okay, and the last option in my list today is HomeAglow. This is where the cost per clean math works out to be the most budget friendly, so I want to run through the numbers with you because the comparison, when you see it really broken down, is so much better than just, oh yeah, it's cheaper. So let's go through it. First things first, much like the other platforms we've looked at today, HomeAglow is an online platform where you browse independent cleaners in your area, read their reviews, choose who you want, and book directly. So you put your info in here. There are still no phone calls, no in-home visits, no back and forth with anybody or waiting on a quote. You get all of that figured out in just a few minutes here. And then in terms of pricing, you can see that the intro price is 3 hours of cleaning for $19 at 75% off. Let me walk you through how that really breaks down when I click this button. Okay, so here is how the pricing model works. They have a monthly membership called Forever Clean. That is going to be $59 a month. When you pay that $59 a month, every cleaning that you book through HomeAglow is going to be discounted down to $20 an hour, which is going to save you about 60% per cleaning. And while you can't browse local cleaners near you until you lock all of this in, I appreciate seeing that this is what it's going to be. I pay $59 a month, I get cleaning for $20 an hour. I already know that my house is going to take 4 or 5 hours for deep cleaning, so this gives me a lot of really clear, actionable info before I've had to lock anything in or create an account or anything like that. And now let me talk about this $19 first clean for a moment here. This offer is real. This is what you are going to pay for your first clean if you take advantage of this deal that they're running, but it is tied to this Forever Clean membership at $59 a month. So here's exactly what you need to know before you sign up. If you cancel before completing the 6 paid months of this membership, then they are going to come back and retroactively charge your first cleaning at full price, which is calculated at $35 an hour for however long that first session was. So for me, looking at about 5 hours to deep clean my house, if I were to cancel early, I'd be looking at $35 times 5 hours, and that is the fee that I would have to pay in order to cancel. Once you make it to the end of that first 6 months, though, the membership flips into month to month, and you can cancel anytime with no penalty. Another nice thing I appreciate is that even though they break down the discount and exactly how it works here, they also explain that the cleaner you work with still gets a full wage. And so I appreciate that clarity, honestly. Now, beyond canceling the membership, if you just need to cancel one single appointment, cancellations are free as long as it is longer than 6 hours before your booking. If it's less than 6 hours, then you're looking at about a $20 cancellation fee. And now with all of that said, I'd like to run the HomeAglow math for my home so that you can see really how this pricing breaks down. So at $20 an hour for, let's say, a 4-hour clean, we're looking at $80 per deep cleaning. If we add the $59 membership, my monthly cost, if I want just one cleaning per month, is going to be $139. If I wanted bi-weekly cleaning, which is going to be 2 cleanings a month, that's going to be $80 per cleaning times 2, plus that $59 membership. And we're still only at $219 a month total, which works out to about $109 per clean. If we come back and we compare that to Handy, which I believe was going to be like $296 on their best rate bi-weekly for 12 months. And remember, this is $296 per cleaning, so that would be almost $600 a month compared to at HomeAglow, we're at $219 a month. And then for TaskRabbit, with that gal that I picked initially, $46.45 an hour. So for that, we'd be looking at $46.45 an hour times 4 hours, $185 per cleaning. That would be $371 a month if I wanted to go with TaskRabbit. And again, I didn't even factor in the additional 30 to 40% fees, which is going to make this so much higher. And then for Thumbtack, the lowest starting price we can see is $180. We have no idea what that is quoted for, right? Is that $180 per hour, per 2 hours, per bedroom? No way to really calculate that. But even if it is, miraculously somehow $180 per cleaning, if I wanted to have that done twice a month, we're at $360 just from this ballpark estimate. And then for Tidy, we were looking at, if we wanted every 2 weeks, $207 every 2 weeks. So that's a little over $400 a month. And so basically every one of these options besides HomeAglow is going to cost me hundreds of dollars more than I would be paying if I were to go with HomeAglow's deeply discounted options. As one final comparison, I also got a quote from Merry Maids, and they wanted to charge me about $300 every 2 weeks. So at the end of the day, $219 total, that's for the entire month for 2 cleanings, is the most budget-friendly deep cleaning that I was able to find that I could book online. So now that we've done all of that math, I will say that my value verdict on HomeAglow is that this is by far the best cost per clean for recurring deep cleaning, especially on a large home. And that is true when compared against every single one of the other platform-based options that we have looked at today. So, all of this said, here is where everything lands from a value perspective. If you want set it and forget it, recurring deep cleaning, but budget friendliness isn't really part of the equation for you, the price just doesn't really matter, then Handy is what I would suggest. For a one-time or occasional deep clean where you really don't want that kind of membership commitment, Thumbtack is going to be the easiest way to compare local pros quickly. Tidy, meanwhile, has the most transparent upfront pricing for one single visit. TaskRabbit would give you the most flexibility in the specialist that you ultimately choose, but be sure to factor in that added trust fee when you're budgeting for this because it adds up fast. For recurring deep cleaning, where what you want most of all is to optimize the cost per clean and really make every dollar count, HomeAglow is the clear winner. The membership math works in your favor starting from the very first month, meaning unlike a lot of other memberships, you don't need to reach month 3 or 4 or 6 before you start to see real savings. It starts immediately. And starting from the very first clean, the cost per clean is lower than any of the other platforms we've talked about here today. Thanks for hanging out with me here on the Personal Finance Diaries. If you found this useful, don't forget to subscribe. We are all about making smarter money moves. See you next time.